Welcome to Multifamily Syndication Unscripted, a show that teaches investors the truth about multifamily real estate. Your hosts, Ben Leybovich, Sam Grooms, and Scott Hollister have more than 30 years of combined experience in real estate and finance. We are active multifamily syndicators and operators, providing you with detailed and cycle-appropriate content. Absolutely no fluff. So, if you want to be smarter about how and where you put your capital to work, listen up. You will learn what works in today's market conditions.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Multifamily Syndication Unscripted, Season 2, with Scott Hollister, Sam Grooms, and Ben Leybovich. We are recapping a very fast-paced year Sam and I had. We are kind of plucking out some valuable nuggets for you guys that you can maybe use to illuminate the process for yourself. And this is episode 3 in season 2. And we're going to pick it up where we left off, talking about management, both of property and investors. And I'll hand it over to Scott. We're structuring this as a little bit more of an interview format where Scott asks the questions and Sam and I try our best to answer and to give you some color and some perspective on the process. So here we go. Scott, take it over.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Sam, good morning. Let's talk about management. Yeah. So, and thank you for the text last night, Ben. Ben shot me over a text saying, wonderful job on marrying up. And we had a conversation going of that's the secret, right?
Well, dude, you know, I'm on Facebook and this picture pops up and there's this gorgeous girl in it and you. And I'm going like, what the hell happened there? And how? So I texted Scott and I said, what did you do? What happened? Because she didn't like look at you because I know how you look. She did not look at you and say, I think there's a good looking guy. I'm going to marry him. There's got to be more to it. There's a, you know.
You just saw the beard and, you know, it was over.
I'm also talking about myself. I'm also talking about Sam. There's always a story behind it. There's always a backstory. It just doesn't happen just like that. That was funny. But my point is, you have a beautiful wife, and you definitely married up, and you're lucky to have had the gumption to ask.
100%, man. That's a key to life, right? Having someone in your corner that you can know and trust. That's always going to be there. Like even when we started dating, we were doing single family rehabs, and she was there chipping wallpaper with me. Yeah, so nice. Keep her.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the same story I hear from everyone. I mean, Brittany and Sam, I got pictures to prove it. You know, in his house that they live in. At one point, now it's remodeled, gorgeous, and everything else. But at one point, in the middle of the living room, there was a fire stack, like a fireplace, okay? And I have pictures. I remember 2 years back seeing pictures of Brittany with a sledgehammer, busting up those bricks in that fireplace. So that story you're saying, that picture that you are describing, same with me. I mean, we used to buy a bottle of wine and some stinky cheese. We call it stinky cheese, and go into the rehabs and the units and turn those units together. As before we had kids. Things have changed for all three of us a little bit. we do it a little different now, but absolutely.
How about the process of vetting management? So switching gears. So what made you pick the management company you went with? You know, obviously, they have a lot of units under management in that local area. Were you able to vet, 2 or 3 different companies, or did you, right off the bat know that this was the company that you wanted to manage your asset?
Sam?
So this company is the biggest and the best, and they're known in the area as being the best. So we just went directly with them. We interviewed with them. We had a great first meeting, like we talked about either last episode or the episode before, they referred us to a ton of other people in the industry that we've ended up using, like our mortgage broker, attorney, everybody. So we just loved the relationship, and we didn't feel that we needed to interview any other property management companies. Just went for the best.
So from my standpoint, I had a little bit of a pre-existing relationship with them, but that's beside the point. We're in Phoenix, MSA. There are literally 3 companies, maybe 4, property management companies of note that if you're going to manage institutional quality assets and you're going to manage them institutionally, that's who you hire. There may be 3 or 4. When we talk about property management, we often talk about it in a nonchalant kind of way. I'm telling you, there's 5 million population in Phoenix, MSA. This is a primary market. This is a huge city. This isn't a village, Lima, Ohio, that we're discussing property management. This is a very, very large city, and yet I'm telling you, there's only 3 or 4 institutional quality property management companies in this town. Everyone knows it, doing things. Yeah, you could bring it in-house under certain circumstances. You can bring property management in-house. Short of that, like I said, there's only 3 or 4. Doing anything other is basically, I think, fair enough to characterize as half-assing it, okay? So let's start the conversation there. You are only vetting 3 or 4 property management companies, which is an amazing thing in a city with 5 million population, in a metropolitan statistical area with 5 million population. You'd think there'd be 20, and maybe there are, just 3 or 4 that you would consider institutionally. So that's the kind of the top of the funnel. You're only starting with 3 or 4. And then, you are going to manage them on a day-to-day basis. You're going to manage your managers. So it's a relationship business. So I hate to say things like, do you click? Do you not click? That kind of thing. But it really comes down to that, because you're going to be working with these guys very closely and relating to them and being comfortable with them is half the battle, because they all have accounting departments. They all have reporting departments. They all have legal departments. They all have, construction arm, all of them institutional guys with 10, 15, 20,000 units under management. They all have that stuff. So there's going to be differences between them, but it really comes down to personalities and relationships and comfort levels. Okay. So I don't know if that gives you and would give the listeners kind of a bit of perspective on the whole, how do you vet the PM? But we like these guys, knowing that there's maybe 3 others that can do the same job in the same way, equally well. We can talk about potential differences in the approaches between PMs and things like that, but that's in the weeds, okay? By and large, we felt comfortable. We felt they were large enough. They were a known commodity among the lenders, which is important, especially when you're starting out and you don't have executional track record. You have to have somebody on your team that the lender is going to be comfortable with. And all 3 of these, 4 of these companies, they would be just fine, but we just felt comfortable. And I want
to expand on something that Ben said. So they all have that back office stuff, the marketing, the accounting, legal. So what separates them? You really want to get comfortable with your regional and your managers. And your regional is going to find you the manager. So it's really the regional. You want to find a really good regional. So that's who you want to interview. In our very first meeting with our property management company, we had a regional in there, because you're interviewing them as much as the company. So find the regional that you like, and they are going to be the one, basically the face of the property management company to you.
So let's identify the infrastructure, because I get a lot of these questions. What is property management? Institutional property management, in terms of the infrastructure, looks this way. You have payroll that you are paying for your on-site personnel, both office personnel and maintenance personnel. Okay, the super, the assistants, all of that. Above them is what Sam is calling regional. This regional is a roaming professional that has 7, 10, 20 properties in his portfolio. He reports to the mothership. I call it the mothership, the actual property management company, the offices, okay? But regional is the guy that's going to be coming to the property. He is going to be working with the office staff. He's going to be materially involved in the strategy and controls as far as execution is concerned. Now, what's different among different property management companies is the approach of what is more important, the on-site staff or the regional. In other words, do you entrust the regional to control the office staff? And maybe they're less experienced in the office, but because your regional is so high flying, high quality, that's what you want, because it's the regional that's been around for a while. It's the regional that knows how things should run, and the guidance is so solid and it's always ever present that it doesn't almost matter who's in the office. The regional is going to make sure things happen just by office people following his instructions. That's one approach. Another approach is to say, hey, the regional is going to be at the property maybe once a week. So it's important that they're good, but what's more important is that the property management is good. The actual office staff, on-site personnel is good, that they've been around. So, it works both ways, and property management see it from these two different perspectives, and it can work in both ways. Ideally you have good people on both sides of that equation, but when it comes to the PMs, they have so much money to spend per property, right? And so they evaluate, do we want to pay more to the on-site person to get a higher quality on-site person, and maybe pay a little less to the regional, or reverse that? Okay, because they're all going to charge owners the same amount, and then they're going to decide how they want to allocate that. So payroll is what it is, and we can speak more to exactly what that payroll is for us in terms of dollars, but then you get charged the percentage fee, a percentage of the gross revenue, the gross collections. And that percentage can range between 3 and 5%. And that percentage is what's going to pay for all of those back office services, plus the property management profit margin, right? And that represents the infrastructure. So you have two expenses associated with property management. You have real expenses that are passed on to you, such as buying staples and paying for telephones and paying for marketing and advertising and all those kinds of things. You also have payroll, which you are paying. They're employees of the PM, but you are paying for them. And finally, you have a management fee, which is going to be in the range of 3 to 5%, that essentially covers the back office, okay? And then if you're doing construction and they're providing that service, it's very common that you're going to see construction management fee. And it's in the range of, what I've seen, it's in the range of 5 to 7%. of the CapEx budget, the job that they're doing. So that represents a kind of an institutional property management infrastructure.
Mm.
So that you're not confused when we're talking about regional and on-site and all of that. So there's layers.
Okay. And I'm sure that construction management fee is probably worth its weight in gold, especially in the, first asset that you had. Let's talk about how you moved across, the next three and what that, construction, budget looked like and what you learned from, watching them take that over the first time, and how have you taken that on yourself to date?
I agree with the 5% being worth its weight in gold. They have a lot of expertise. They have a lot of context. So anything that they need done, they know exactly the 3 vendors that they're going to call to come give bids. They know all of the cities, what cities care about certain things, what cities don't care. If we're adding washer and dryers at a new property, they know exactly how long it's going to take for the city to get that approved, who to talk to, which vendors to bring in. It's just worth their expertise, the 5%. If you're going to ever take it in-house, that's going to be the hardest position to replace.
Mm.
But we for the exterior, we've continued to use the PM across all 4 properties. That's that VP of construction that just has all the expertise. They have a separate wing that does interior renovations. And we started with them on the first property, second, third. But as we bought our 4th property, we decided to take that in-house. So now we actually have the interior renovations in-house. We have our own team of people that we use for all of the renovations. And then we also subcontract out a few of the items like flooring and drywall and paint.
And Scott, this brings us to a little bit of the strategy. So the reason we took it in-house is because obviously we felt we needed more efficiency. The units needed to be done faster, more on schedule, quality control, things like that. Well, you have to ask yourself, why was there a problem? Clearly there was. We wouldn't have made the change if there wasn't. But why was there a problem? The fact is, vast majority of people, buyers, multifamily buyers, be it syndicators or whatever, value add, those magical words, value add, what do they mean? They mean reface the cabinets, paint the cabinet boxes, refinish the Formica countertop, resurface the Formica, resurface the bath, put maybe new appliances in, flooring, paint, and you're done. So this is kind of I call it lipstick on the pig renovation scope. And this is probably deserving of its own show, of its own episode. But this is not what Sam and I do. For a number of different reasons, we go well beyond that. We rip out the cabinets. We go, we put new cabinets in. We do granite countertops. We create a product several layers, several levels up from what I just described that everybody else does. And we do it because we're late enough in the cycle, because I don't want, to have everything everybody else has, like product that's the same, like in the downturn, there's always a flight to quality, and I want to have a little better quality than everybody else. If we get caught in the down cycle, we could have an hour's worth of conversation around that. But what it meant for the renovation is that the property management team is a good team. They're just not used to doing this level of construction. Mm-hmm. And as we kept acquiring each property, it was becoming a little bit more evident that, yeah, they have a lot of connections, but those connections are maybe, they stop with replacing the countertops. Not really, they're not really doing granite replacements. They're not really ripping out cabinets. That's not what they typically do for a typical owner. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it meant completely escalating their business model. Well, when you ask yourself, do they really want to do that? If we are maybe one of two clients who is interested in this level of renovation, if something happens to us and they hire all these people and they have them on payroll and we walk away, they're stuck holding the bag to a certain extent, and they've just put in a bunch of time revamping their business to accommodate basically one client. So it was like pulling teeth a little bit. And every time we bought a property and we added the necessity of doing 5 to 10 more units per month, with every step, with every property, it became evident that it was more and more kind of lagging and lacking. Mm-hmm. So in order to cope with that and respecting where they come from, that out of 20,000 units plus they have under management, here's Ben and Sam with 500 trying to, we're not going to change our business to accommodate these guys. And, so it's understandable. I respect that, but we did what we had to do. We felt we needed to do it.
Well, and I don't think it's just that they didn't want to accommodate Ben and Sam. They didn't have a holistic approach. So their new renovation team, the interior renovations, was completely separate from property management. It was a completely separate arm, separate entity. They just reported to one of the owners. Mm-hmm. So what they did was their sole focus was cutting costs and keeping costs as low as possible. And that was their focus, no matter how long it took. So sometimes renovations were starting to take 90 days as we had 20 to 30 units to renovate per month, because they didn't want to hire a bunch of people that maybe some months were going to be down and then they have all this cost to cover. So it was all about keeping the cost low, instead of when we took it in-house and we have this holistic approach, said, hey, if I'm keeping the unit vacant for 3 months, that's eating into my occupancy a ton. And that's costing me every month $1,000 per unit just sitting there. So I might be saving $500 by not hiring a couple of extra people per unit, saving $500. But if it's taking me an extra 2 months, that's $2,000. Why am I saving $500 to lose $2,000? And that's the holistic approach that we take. And I think they just didn't have that same mentality. And it wasn't just that they didn't want to hire people. They were just trying to keep costs extremely low for themselves.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe I wasn't. That's what I meant. But yeah.
No, it clarifies it, and I think that's that vertical integration, right? Bringing it in-house, especially if it's not exactly how you want it to go. So staying on that current theme of management, I know we bounced a little bit to the rehab, but what does your week look like when you're managing not only the manager but the construction as well? Is there a meeting that you like to have, every Monday morning? We talk about the week's goals, or what does that look like Monday through Friday?
So Ben and I are a little bit more hands-on, I think, than your typical owners. Mm-hmm. So we don't have a lot of the other ones, like our regional has one other group that he does management for, and they just have a weekly meeting where Ben and I are probably texting and on the phone with our regional throughout the whole week. And usually meeting at least once, if not more. So there's no set meeting. We're just constantly tweaking stuff, talking to them, game planning. Ben probably talks to our regional daily.
Mm-hmm. And we just kind of break it down. So Sam is basically running renovation guys. I am privy to the messaging, and I am on that text thread and that billboard, so to speak. So I know what's going on, kinda, but I take the office personnel and the regional. So I focus my attention on talking to those guys. Sam focuses his attention making sure the renovations are on track.
Mm-hmm. And what did you learn with the first deal to the fourth deal?
I'm sure that Sam has a lot of value to add here. I will tell you that it's not very different. Nobody's going to care about your property more than you, period. So do I feel like some kind of big institutional guy? No, I don't. We do institutional sized deals, but I feel like I'm in the weeds on this. Just like if I was buying a 10 unit and I was managing it myself. In fact, I remember the process of that. And it's exactly the same. Sorry. So anybody, like, I can't see buying property anywhere other than Phoenix. Why? Because I am in Phoenix, and Sam and I have talked about it. Like, it's like, no, what gives us, I feel, a competitive advantage is that we're here. We understand Phoenix more so than if you're just looking at data from California or someplace else. But also, we're literally at the property every day. We're going to be at the property today. I mean, I don't really know. I don't really understand how to entrust property management to the point where you're literally not. So I was at property yesterday. I'm going to be at a different property today. Sam has been training our office people at the third property all week and last week. I mean, I just don't see the difference. I'm responsible for people's money. These properties are the vehicle, but ultimately we're managing people's money that invested in these projects. And
I would say that's what I've learned the most, actually, is exactly what Ben's talking about. I thought we would implement a business plan, get them on board with the business plan, and they would go execute. But like Ben said, it's not like that. You're in the day-to-day still, managing them. And
meaning
I guess I did, yeah, managing the property managers. And I didn't anticipate that. So we've had to change along our tasks a lot more and get more involved as we've grown.
So that means we're hiring our own personnel. We have about 300,000 of payroll already. Between the construction team, there's 4 guys in the construction team, and now we've just hired our first office person that's going to help Sam with a lot of the tasks. And it's just getting started because we can't effectively manage people's money with just the 2 of us. And this has been it, right? So I always thought that I can't, if I'm gonna take $20 million of people's money, I'm just gonna do everything myself because I don't trust anybody else. What I've realized is that if I don't delegate, I can't do a good enough job. I can't do everything myself. Sam can't do everything himself. So in order to do a good job managing the $20 million of people's money, we have to have help. We have to pay for that help, and we have to have that help. That to me has been a shocker. Like, I always knew we'd have to manage the PMs. Like, I never had those illusions like what Sam's talking about. He thought he'd take it over. No, I always knew that was going to be it. What I didn't realize is that so quickly we would become institutional, and we would have to begin thinking institutionally and build out our operations institutionally. And that's what's happening now, and it's happening faster than I ever imagined it would.
So with that, what are the first, 3 employees that you'd recommend someone hiring? Once you get to that level, what has helped you the most, and what are you looking to do?
I would say an office person, and they're going to kind of just have their hands in everything, whether it's reporting. So we do monthly reporting, which is a little bit more frequent than your average sponsor does quarterly. But they can help you with the transactions, just a lot of the administrative tasks that are monotonous. We use the same person to help with the construction, the coordination. So they're ordering everything from the vendors, scheduling everything, just basically a construction coordinator, project manager role. I would say that because it just frees up your time a whole lot. And that's what I've been training this person, and that's what Ben was referring to. I would say an asset manager would help. And that's, we haven't hired this person yet. But I think that would basically what Ben's talking about is his daily involvement with the property managers and the regional. That's what that person would do. So they would instead know the business plan and work daily with all of the properties to make sure it gets implemented. And going back to my previous comment, that's basically what I thought that the regional would be doing. But you still need someone on your side that has the same vision as us, and has the same motivations and incentives to implement the business plan. And so that was the surprising part was for me, is that you need a separate asset manager. Third position, what do you think, Ben?
No.
Did we lose Ben?
No.
I mean, investor relations could be one. That's a really popular one.
Yep.
You just have a lot of contact with investors, handling all of the calls. So right now, we're going to use that same office person for a lot of that. But eventually, we'll have to have a separate investor relations person.
Well, that's great. I think that's business, right? Any business you go into, you try to create, positions to keep yourself out of it as you grow. And that's always the cat and mouse game, right? You're always going to grow. There's going to be new things to learn and new people to hire. And it's great that you're training that. So that office personnel, so they're not necessarily tied to any individual asset, correct? That's more for your business. Okay.
Yep. And that I liked what you just said. So basically, I mean, everybody says it, but you want to be working on your business, not in your business. So whatever tasks that you're working in your business that are just the same, that you can easily repetitive and you can pass on to someone, do that as soon as possible. And that's what's going to help you grow. And that's what Ben and I are doing right now, just to get us from 500 units to 2,000, is getting all of the repetitive tasks off our plate.
Yeah. So you can focus on what you know and enjoy, And the E-Myth is a great book for that. I think that's where that quote came from, just creating the processes that, are repetitive and trying to take yourself out of it.
Yep, exactly.
So this is a big topic again. So bringing management in-house. So we've just talked about bringing the construction in-house and why it's good to do so at your level. So what level, or is there a unit count, or is there, gross income amount where you think it makes sense to bring management in-house, and why?
It's definitely an income amount. For us, that translates to about 1,000 units at our rent levels. But you have to have a certain income, because obviously the property management company gets a percentage of that, and that's what's used to pay all those back office jobs. So you need to have a regional, you need to have a really good accountant, CPA, experience in property management. Those are 2 positions minimum. You probably want someone who handles marketing. Legal costs can get passed on to the property separately, so that doesn't need to be covered in the 3%. But those 3 positions you really want to have a handle on and be able to support that. And you don't want you want to have some kind of buffer, because what happens if there's a downturn and rents drop a little bit, or you have some extra economic loss and gross income comes down? Well, you still need all those positions. So you almost need an extra at least 25% in income than what's covering those positions. And you're going to need an office. So you have all these expenses every month that are going to have to be absorbed by that 3%. So basically, you just have to calculate what those positions pay in your area and the office space in your area, and back into what the gross amount of income that can support that.
Yeah.
And this
Now,
is also a function of strategy, though, Scott, because if let's say if you are in and out of properties within 2 or 3 years, then it's difficult to grow the unit count, right? If you buy a property, you reposition a property, you sit on it for 12 months, you show stabilized T12, and then you exit the property, and that's the entire business plan. And then you buy another one to replace that, then it becomes difficult to achieve sustainable kind of understanding of what your sustainable income is going to be in the portfolio, because it's so dynamic if that's your business plan. Well, do you really want to bring PM in-house under those circumstances? That's another question. Whether you can or not, it's a separate issue. Is it a good idea in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Those are great questions to ask. And let's just say you get to 1,000 units and you're going to stabilize them, for a longer time instead of that 12-month exit. Are you treating that as a separate business to get into, or is it more just to, have more quality control, kind of like the construction? Because I doubt you're doing it to make extra income, right?
Well, it's both. So it's a separate business, but it's basically a non-profitable business. Basically, that's why I look like our construction company. It's a non-profit that I spend an insane amount of time working on this non-profit. But it's necessary. So that's,
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're going to see it, right? Instead of having a vacant unit for 90 days, you're seeing that profit elsewhere, right? Probably in your bottom line, your NOI. It all
falls back into fiduciary responsibility, right? So we are managing tens of millions of people's money. We owe it to our investors to do everything we like. If we see that we can do something that has a better than 50-50 chance of improving the performance of this asset, we feel like we have to do it. Whether it's for profit or not profit, we feel like we have to do it because that's what we promised people. So that's what we do. My question that I posed to you with regard to the PM is really a strategic question. Is it a better idea for us on behalf of our investors to take PM in-house? If we were holding the property for 7 to 10 years and we were just accumulating and buying a large portfolio, likely the answer would be very simple. Yes, because then it would just be stable portfolio with a lot of units. We would know what we have, and we would have the personnel to run it. That's not quite our business plan across the board. And so right now, maybe it does make sense to bring it in-house. Maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure yet. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. It'll become self-evident, I think.
Yeah, but for us, it'll never be to have a extra revenue stream. It's just going to be if we're forced into, we need to do it for the sake of our other business.
Yeah.
Well, in other words, I don't think I want to have it so we can do third party for other people. I mean, yes. I've learned to never say never, but I don't see Sam and I doing that right now as we sit here.
Yeah. Well, that's some great insight. And I think that's a good place to wrap up. We kind of combine these episodes into management and rehab. Sam, you want to take us out of this episode?
Oh, what are we called? This is Multifamily Syndication Unscripted podcast.
You know it's
Scott
coming
Hollister,
off. Come on.
Ben Leybovich, and Sam Grooms. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Multifamily Syndication Unscripted with your hosts, Ben, Sam, and Scott. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Multifamily Syndication Unscripted.